Welcome to episode 162 of Broadsheet Hustle. 162, the full MLB season, and just in time for our MLB midseason show as the Phillies completed game 81. So we're exactly halfway through the baseball season. So you know what that means. We're going to talk about baseball halfway through, go through some Phillies, which we alluded to last week, trades, needs, where they're at, what we think midseason overall in Major League Baseball, and then kind of relook at some of the what we talked about in the beginning and make some changes and predictions to some of the awards to help with some betting needs that you may have halfway through the Major League Baseball season. Let me go around the horn. We have our normal cast that we've been having. I got Jason Sayetta with me, as always.
What's up, Tom?
Jason, how are you? And I got Jimmy the Chalk.
What's up, King?
What's up? And that is it. The OGs are continued to carry the tread the water for Broadsheet Hustle, as some of our other hosts, are unable to conveniently do it non-football season. So tonight's episode is brought to you by Giovannina's Pizza. You tried the rest, now try the best. Grab a slice and get ready for the All-Star game of Major League Baseball. All right, let's just jump right into it. But before I get into Phillies and midseason um, baseball, we are a Philadelphia podcast, so I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention the NBA draft that took place last night, and the second round is going on tonight. But Jason, any quick thoughts of? I know you're not a big college basketball, same as I'm not watching these guys, but I mean you've probably read and heard enough now, at least the direction that the team is going with VJ Vacome. Is that his name?
Edgecombe.
VJ Edgecombe. So, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's a pretty safe pick. The kid looks like he could play both sides of the ball. I've heard comparisons to Old Depot.
Dwayne Wade, I saw was referenced.
Wade, but I mean, Wade's a Hall of Famer. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, listen, if he's an Old Depot quality player, I mean, Old Depot he's hurt now, but he was, he's a really good two-way player. He could score. He could do a lot. He's very athletic. He's not exactly the fit. If you look at the team now, they just have a ton of guards, and I don't know what the fit is. The other kid from Rutgers, Ace Bailey, was probably a better fit, but he seems to have character issues and stuff. So, when you're drafting third, you can't play around there. You got to get a guy who's going to help you. Can't take a project, so I'm fine with it.
Chalky.
I mean, if I would have made notes ahead of this, then my note would have said safe pick. And really, I don't. Your guards. I mean, you have one maybe pure point guard in Grimes of the four guards, and Maxey's,
and he's not even really a pure point guard.
And Maxey, who's certainly not pure, and he's not really much of it. So. And you can't expect Grimes to play as well as he did last year with limited minutes and So again, safe pick, high quality person. It seems like we talked about growing up poor, and when he got his NIL money at school, he set up scholarships back home in the Bahamas and all that. So it seems like he's a kid who's going to have his head on straight, which we haven't always had those kind of people here. He's going to work hard. His offensive ceiling seems like it could be limited, but he's going to hustle and he's going to get after you on defense. But you have a bunch of 6'4", 6'5" guards now that are no pure point guards, and you have that hole. But here's the bottom line. If you look at what's been going on in the NBA between injuries and trades, there is no dominant team in the East. And no one at this point can expect Embiid to play more than 40 games a year, or George. But if somehow they stay healthy, they can maybe package a couple of those guys and a pick to get somebody that can fit in there and maybe get out of the East. They're not on the level of OKC or even maybe a Minnesota even. But with Boston's injuries and these trades, and Halliburton out, the East is going to be wide open next year, because I'm not sold on the Knicks because we don't even know who their coach is going to be. So.
Yeah, it signifies that they're still in, they trust that Embiid's going to be able to come back. I mean, hope and trust that Embiid's going to be able to come back George is and then this kid definitely off the bench can defend. So it's a safe pick, but it could be a pick just like McCain that can kind of help you sooner rather than later and not have to do these developments. I to me it's the ghost of Ben Simmons, right? Like they didn't want take a shot with an ace Bally and ends up with Ben Simmons. And one thing Maury said, and we'll move on, that I actually thought was one of the better things I've heard like a GM say about, especially in the NBA now. We talk about his offensive ceiling. You don't know what his offensive ceiling is because they got guys that can't shoot that develop shots in the NBA that become elite 3-point shooters. So it's so hard anymore. But Maury said he wants a guy who, and this is the kid they drafted, who understands that he has gaps and will put the work in to fill those gaps. And that's what they drafted. So it sounds like the Ace Valleys, the Ben Simmons, is a perfect example. They wouldn't admit they had gaps, nor would they put in the work to get better because they already thought they were at the level they could have been. So that's what the pick looked like. So it's hard to ever fault a team for taking a guy like this. Like, it might not work out. I mean, and we will. At the end of the day, the results are what drives it. But yeah, I don't think you get too many people around the city right now that don't at
Ben
least
Simmons
like
put the
it.
work in to make all those videos doing things
Yeah,
we
he
thought
did
he
about
should be doing, but he never actually did it on the court.
Yeah, just the way he talked too. He always referenced how talented he was and this
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, all right, good. So nice little tidbit to add before we jump in. So now let's jump into Phillies Midway baseball. And boy, did I wish Jimmy D was on today. We caught the Phillies at a great time to talk about as they come off of a 3-game losing streak, lose the series to Houston, and score exactly 1 run in those 3 games. So the need that they may have and the trades we may talk about may have changed because it's clear that they need offensive help along with bullpen help. And then but Dombrowski kind of made a comment, I guess it was after the game, saying offensively we're fine, which, it's GM talk a lot of times, but kind of crazy coming off of a series where you scored 1 run. But Jason, take us to where you want to take us with the Phillies here Midway. Your thoughts around the team. Are they different than they were last year and the years prior? And then, we'll end it through with kind of their needs and trades and things like that.
Yeah, so they're at the midway point. They're 47-34 after 81 games. So projection is 94 wins, right around what I thought that they would be. I thought 95, 96, somewhere around there. So not too far off. Obviously, we're coming off a pretty pitiful series where they scored 1 run in 3 games, which is embarrassing. Um, but the pitching was great. The starting pitching was great, as it has been. And, it's hard to say this now after watching these last 3 games, but the way this team is built, they're built for the playoffs with that pitching staff, right? And again, it's not an easy thing to say right now, but they have 4 starters that are as good as or better than anyone else has in baseball. So if Dombrowski makes the right moves at the trade deadline, and he's usually pretty aggressive, they could be right there. And also remember, again, 1 run in 3 games. They haven't had Harper. They're proud, he's their best player. Come on.
Yeah,
Right?
eventually that catches up to you. They got by for a while, and
Yeah, of course it does.
eventually,
Yeah,
yeah.
because the guys around him, Schwarber is in the toilet right now. He's got no protection.
Well,
They,
yeah, yep.
so they miss Bryce Harper. I mean, take Shohei Ohtani off of the Dodgers. Take Judge off of the Yankees. I mean, come on. So cut them some slack. They're built for the playoffs. Dombrowski, he should be the one on the hot seat. He's got to make the right moves, and we'll get into those later. But he's got to make the right moves. He's got to do it. Because to me, he's on the hot seat.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look like offensively, they are 10th in runs scored average. I mean, so it's not like they're the same. They're actually a little bit different because they have an offense that could win in the playoffs because they do things better than they have in the
Well,
past.
Turner's having his best year.
Right, when it comes to they're hitting the ball, they're getting more hits, they're moving runners, they're stealing a little more. So you can, when you add in the power, you get on a hot streak with power. You have a team that could do it. Now again, coming off this series, it's nobody wants to hear that. It's hard, but they are where they've been with their offense, if not in a little bit of a better situation. But they can use help, and we'll get into that. Chalky.
Yeah. So I mean, the Harper, Jason, you mentioned it and you put a lot of emphasis on it, but the Harper thing you can't undersell right now when they're in like an offensive slump. And, so he's going to be big and you're going to get, it means you're taking out of the lineup look, Kemp did all right for a while. Now he's not, he's in 240. Like he's clearly not ready, if ever, to be an everyday player. So maybe he's a guy you keep up, but, he's a 4A player, probably, he's that type.
Mm-hmm.
So Harbor coming back will give it and there's some additional protection. I mean, and I didn't follow today's game closely as far as what situations they got in, but like the first 2 games, they got guys on base, they just couldn't get them home. So it's like, you're having trouble stringing together. Last night, bases loaded, Bohm strikes out. Castellanos hits a weak grounder, the third, that if Bohm hits that ball, run scores, and it's a tie game going into the 8th or whatever. But not to get too far ahead, but I actually I am perfectly fine with the way this series played out for 2 reasons. One, as Jason mentioned, it showed that your starting pitching really can be a strength, and I know the bullpen gave up a run last night and the winning run today, but I think the bullpen has been fairly solid, except for I think the Saturday night game against the Mets, right? But that was out of hand pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to, and that changes what you're going to look for at the deadline potentially, because with the starting rotation, you're going to have Nola coming back at some point. It might be August now. People are saying, I don't know. I don't think they're going to rush to get him back. They're going to rush him back at this point. At Abel, I think Abel's going to be the odd man out because they seem like they get Painter up at some point. So I don't see a reason to keep Abel up if you're not going to pitch him. But in an interview Dombrowski gave to Jason Stark this week, he talked about the formula that the 2018 Red Sox team that he built used to win. And Craig Kimbrell was their closer, and he was not the guy closing games in the World Series. It was Sale. It was Benintendi. Starter has taken up a lot of innings in the playoffs in the World Series, and it sounds like that's what he wants to do, or he's going to recommend if he's the one that makes the ultimate call come playoff time. Doesn't mean they're not going to get bullpen help, but I mean, I think the result was good in that it makes me feel good about the pitching staff. And the other thing he said in that interview was like, yeah, I don't see us making a bat move. Harper is willing to move, but I don't see why we need to do that. Well, this is the example of you need to add a bat. So it's kind of right there. I'd rather them lose these games like this. Let me say this. Suppose they won each of these games 2-1, right? Would you guys feel better about it because they went 3-0, but they're still not scoring, or the fact that they almost got shut out for 3 games straight? I mean, to me, that if there's going to be any urgency to really make a move to get a right-handed bat in the lineup, this is the kind of thing you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Dombrowski's watching these particular games and coming up with like strategies on trades. I hope he's not, because he's a bad GM if that's like he should already have the direction he wants to go to make deals, because we have, I mean, God forbid we have 3 years of these guys, but specifically you still have 81 games to know where your deficiencies are. So if you're not using a 3-game sample size to say, we got to make a deal. We can't hit. We got shut out. So
no, but sometimes you reach that point of where it just kind of wakes you up. And yes, it shouldn't be that, but like, Tuesday night, Rojas is 2 on the count. Amaro's like, you got to take a pitch, and he swings. Like,
well, he's a dumb baseball player.
He's got the lowest baseball IQ of any player I've ever watched play the sport.
I still just think, and I blame Dombrowski, of course. I don't know if I blame Dombrowski fully, because at every organization he was in, he was very aggressive. He wasn't aggressive last year during the All-Star break or the trade deadline. He wasn't aggressive in the offseason. So it's almost, I don't know how much he's being told what he can and can't do. And I don't think it's money. I think a lot of it is is maybe the brass doesn't want to give up these young guys like that they have, and they've been trying to hold on to them. So I think it comes down to if is he going to be allowed to move these young players to get win now players to get to the next level to try to win a championship. So that's where I don't think any of what's happened on the field necessarily matters. I think it's behind the scenes with the brass and whether it's Middleton or I don't know who everybody on the organizational side that's making those kind of decisions. But to me, that's what it seems like has been the problem. And we'll jump into that since we're going to it.
So the one thing he did say in that interview too was that when you're in this type of position, sometimes you have to give up more than you would like to get the right player on the team at the trade deadline. So that could be a precursor to like, hey, you guys might not like the fact that we're going to trade one of these top 3,
Yeah,
5 prospects, but heads up.
because everybody wants them to get all these guys, but we can't give this guy up. We can't give that guy.
Right.
We'll give him Crawford. Well, you're not getting certain guys by giving up these guys that are these mid-level prospects.
Yeah.
You need to fully commit to either if you really want these top guys. And now I know, and we'll get into it. And Jason, I'll let you take over because I'm sure you have a bunch prepared with what they really need and where what directions and possibilities they can go. So go ahead and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I think they need three things, right? they need a late inning close. They need a closer, right? I like Kirkering. I still think Kirkering could eventually be the closer. I think he could bridge the gap until you get a closer, but they need a closer. And there's two guys out there. We've mentioned them before: Helsley for the Cardinals and Batista for the Orioles. They're both free agents after this year. You could rent both.
I think Batista has a couple years left, actually.
I thought he has a team option. I thought he has a team option. You can check that.
He might. When I was looking at ESPN's top guys, he was less likely because they thought they had some more control. But let me look at that while we.
Yeah, I looked at Sports Track and it said he had team option. So I think that one of those two guys should be guys that they go hard after. I think they need a center fielder. Enough of these games at Rojas and Marsh. Neither of them can play. They can't play. So whether you're going to bring up Crawford, right, or you're going to trade Crawford to get somebody to come in and play center field. Now, if you bring up Crawford, you're probably going to trade Marsh because Crawford's a left-handed hitter, right? You're not going to go with two lefties in center field. You would keep Rojas probably, which is a scary thought. But one guy I like for center field is Harrison Bader, who's on the Angels. The Angels are not good. We've mentioned his name before. He's very good defensively. He's a right-handed hitter, and he's having a pretty decent year this year. He would be a stopgap guy you could bring in. He could play left field too, because guess what? You need a left field right-handed hitter too. So I definitely think you need to bring in some kind of right-handed hitting outfielder that can play center field. Bader's the guy I would look at there. Another guy I saw is with the Reds, Encarnacio Strand, however you pronounce his name. He's got nowhere to play. He's a young right-handed hitter. He can play a bunch of positions. Maybe you take a flyer on him. And another name is Brian Reynolds. Now, you're going to spend to get him because he makes decent money. He is a switch hitter, but it's the Pirates. They might be willing to get rid of him, but you'd have to give up some kind of, some capital. And again, he's going to cost you money. And you have Schwarber and Real Muto you got to worry about in the offseason re-signing. The last thing I think they need, and again, this is a need that they've had, and they've never addressed it. They need a backup catcher. Like, enough is enough. Real Muto is not what he used to be. I think the less time that he plays, maybe he could play better when he does play. But you can't keep putting these guys like Marchand out there and the other clown that they had last year. I forget his name, but
Stubbs.
You need a veteran backup catcher that can play. Go get one. I don't have
Yeah,
any.
and this year is trending even worse because there wasn't JT. Didn't JT get hurt last year and spend time on the IL? So he like this year is probably going to play even more games
Because he
than he
hasn't.
did last year. And we said last year he needed to sit less. We went into the season this year saying he needs to play less, and yet now like he's still playing just as many, if not more.
And I'll give you one more name before you throw it to Chalky. I don't want him to. I don't want him to come back, but maybe they bring back Hoskins and then you put Harper in the outfield again. I guess it's possible.
Yeah, it definitely depletes your defensively.
Yeah.
All right, Chalky around trades and needs.
Yeah, so real quick. So Batista on Orioles has another 2 years before free agency. So those
But
are club options in theory that the Orioles would pick up, but it's not like they have him if they want. They have control if they want. Is the
they have
bottom.
control if they want. So if the Phillies could bring him here and say we don't want you anymore, and then
Yeah, he was a guy that I mentioned. I think it's been a real down. The Orioles are the most disappointing team in the league right now. I think my guess is they'll look to try to just roll back next year and contend again. So I think he's less likely to move than some of the other guys they have that are not going to be there.
Yeah, they're not in a complete sell mode.
No, they have
Yeah.
a lot of guys that are at the end of their contracts that could go, and maybe some of them could work here, maybe not. Okay, if you're talking about starters that can leverage in the bullpen, Eflin's available. I don't know that he's really the right fit, but if you're talking about pure closers, you know, Duran on Minnesota, maybe. Actually, so Bader is actually on Minnesota, not
oh, did I say the Angels? Okay,
yeah.
yeah, I
So
wrote that down wrong.
I mean, I think I don't think there's a lot of center fielders out there that you're going to get that can really make a difference without giving up something big. So like a guy like Robert, you could get him for pennies on the dollar, but he's probably not going to, other than he'll improve your defense, but he's not going to, he's hitting 192 or something, I think right now. So my thought is this, if you are coming out of this, you either need to bring Crawford up. He's hitting 340 in AAA. Just put him in there and let him play and make another move. Or you have to move him for a center fielder that's going to give you a couple years or try to go down that route. And you could do that plus another move. So, playing fantasy GM, Duran on Minnesota and Minnesota, they're a couple of games back. They might be a few years out. Can you give up Crawford plus others for Duran and Byron Buxton? That would be the best of both worlds. Maybe it's a little pie in the sky, but it's something you got to kind of think about at this point. You need a right-handed bat, whether that's in the outfield or not. I would be okay if you get a right-handed bat that's not center field if you call up Crawford, let's say, if it's not required. But you look at a team like Baltimore, like I said, they have guys that they're willing to trade, but how many of them is really good? That Mullins, their center fielder, he's a left-hander, though. I think he's better than what they have, but you're bringing another lefty in. So what are you going to do about a right-hander at that point? I really think you got to look at moving Harper back to the outfield. It has to be a serious consideration, and then you bring in either a first or third baseman with a right-handed bat and adjust accordingly. And then you roll the dice in center field or make a smaller center field deal with that not being the starting point for your offense. Team in the NL that is really in a rock and a hard place because they have so many injuries is Arizona. And their team, like 3/4 of their starting pitching staff is getting Tommy John surgery. So there you got a guy in Eugenio Suarez who's capable defensive third baseman, has 25 home runs, and he's at the end of his contract. Now he's 33, so you're not going to want to give up a ton for him. But depending on what they might be looking for, they might be looking to sell guys like that. There's a lot of guys there they might sell. Gallen, Kelly. I like Naylor, but he's a left-handed bat. Those are all guys that are contracts are up. They could be looking to move them if they're not going to go. And Shelby Miller, who is closer for them right now, who I think he's not going to cost you what some of the other guys would. And I don't know that Dombrowski's going to go for the stud closer, so he might be somewhere you could look at in that. And then the other closer, I mean, Chapman's back playing well. I mean, you might not, if Boston gets out of it, you might not have to give up that much for him. So he's a name I would look at, but I think you need to make a big move for a center fielder that will give you a couple more years, or you call Crawford up and you try to fill a right-handed bat elsewhere. And I don't think they're going to make a big bullpen splash unless it's part of a bigger deal. That's just my feeling.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I still think it just comes down to if they're going to part with these young players, and that's going to be a difference because you're not going to get guys that are really going to. I mean, you're going to sign the Austin Hayes and things like that if you're not willing to give up these young guys. I mean, that's just what it's gonna
I
do.
think the guys that are tradable are going to be able. You know, we've said it before. I think he's still a guy. He's shown he's got potential. You know, I think Marsh, obviously, you know, he could go. Now, you know, if you really want to do something crazy, like, you know, Chalky's mentioned Buxton or something, now you're talking about trading Ranger Suarez. You know what I mean? Like guys like that who his contract's up. So not out of the question that they trade him. But then that weakens now you're counting on Painter or Nola, right, to be your fourth starter in the playoffs. So I don't know where they go there. But you know, I don't think they're trading. They're definitely not trading Painter, and I don't think they're trading Miller. So any other prospect, including Crawford, including Abel, I think those guys are definitely guys that could be available.
I think it's interesting because he, like, I mean, it is a guy you're probably just going to lose, which is
I don't. You would think that they're not going to. I mean, how could they sign him?
yeah, they can't.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean, I see people
unfortunately,
saying, how can they let him walk? Like, well, where are you going to fit
What are
him
you
in?
going to do?
Because then
yeah,
you have 5 starters, and unless you're
yeah.
going to
Well, I
trade
mean,
Ardo or
You
Sanchez,
already made the Nola mistake.
you're
That
stuck.
mistake
Yeah.
is
Well,
now.
Noel is no,
yeah.
you're locked into
You're
that, and
painted
then
in a corner
you're gonna
now.
not bring Painter in because you're not gonna have anywhere to play him.
No, Painter, and you have Suarez. His deal is so lucrative. You're not. That's not. It's
He's
so
going to
great. I
want.
mean,
He's going to want money. I mean, he's
yeah,
going
but
to
he's
want.
still got a little bit of time. Not Suarez. Sanchez.
Oh,
Right.
That you
Sanchez
pay.
is.
So he's
He's
not.
not going anywhere.
So and then you have Luzardo, who could. I mean, he's only got a year. So I mean, unless you trade Luzardo and sign Rangers, something like that. But it depends on who they believe in, and where they want to out. And then Ranger does give you what Chalky alluded to, like in the playoffs, it gives you options to strengthen your bullpen through starting pitching. Just having an assortment of starters who potentially are bullpen guys. You improved your bullpen by doing that. So you lose out on that. So
I think
I don't know.
one of these starters is going to be in the bullpen in the playoffs, and that's why I said they only need one reliever, because whether it's Nola or Painter or Ranger,
Well,
they're going to be in
especially
the
if it's a
bullpen.
Ranger, because that may take away the need of a left-handed bullpen piece as well. Like because
Yeah.
Strom clearly has issues
I
going
could
on.
Well,
see.
right
I
now,
mean, without knowing for sure when Nola's going to be back or what it'll look like, I don't think it's completely out of the realm that because right now your other 4 guys throw Abel out, or the 3 of them are lefties. That if Painter comes up and throws well, they don't throw a scenario out there where Painter goes 4 or 5 innings and then Ranger comes in for 3 to 4 innings because they're
well,
going through the lineup less than twice in theory, both times around.
here, here's the other thing, which I actually mentioned on the Howard Eskin show last week.
Who?
Luzardo, Jesus Luzardo is, he only threw 66 innings last year, and now he's already in his 70s. So, when the playoffs come around, is he the guy that is going to
Yeah,
go into
I
the
almost think because if you watch his starts too, he throws a lot of pitches.
Yeah.
He gets a lot of deep counts, gets a lot of strikeouts. So I mean, he's going 6 innings is pushing it, and that's like 6 innings with 100 pitches. Like you're not getting him, any too much further than that, and you don't want to keep pushing him to that point. So
So
that's
he might
definitely a
be
guy
he
that can
might
move
be
to
the
a
odd
bullpen.
man out and go to the bullpen in the playoffs.
I
No,
mean,
I would have
the
no
other
problem
thing,
with that.
another thing I was thinking about, because you mentioned, Lazarus hasn't thrown that many innings, is that, okay, let's say Nola comes back, you bring Painter up. Do you go to a 6-man rotation at points to limit Lizardo
so.
and Nola even throwing that many innings before the
Yeah.
playoffs.
I think that's definite. But in the
Yeah, and
playoffs,
if you remember, doesn't Wheeler always go on the Phantom IL for a little bit
he
towards
might.
the? He did it like the last couple years, I think,
He
or at least
could.
last, where he comes up with, and it basically gives him some rest before the playoffs. So you might even get that situation with the more starters that you have. Yeah. All right. So when is the trade deadline? What is the date?
July
July.
31st, usually.
Is it okay? So it's the
Back-
whole month. Yeah. So we still got a lot of time. And you're probably not going to see too much until closer to that time,
Yeah,
right?
you won't
So
see
it's
much
still early.
until after the All-Star break, probably.
No, you'll get your rare stuff like the Boston San Francisco trade where they're like, we got to get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
We're like, he
Yeah.
can't be around. But um, that's really what you're likely to see as far as a big deal before, another month.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's move on here. Midseason, um, MLB baseball. I don't know where did you want to take that? Did you want to go through just kind of where you see the season, like potential playoff teams or disappointments?
Yeah, my thoughts are like we start talking like betting now. So like for instance, you look at the divisions the way they're stacking up right now. Do you see value in anybody that could jump up and win the division? Right? Because if you look at all the teams that are winning the division, there's no value in betting any of those. Right? I mean, we could stick with the NL East for now. I mean, do any of you guys think the Mets are going to bypass the Phillies? I don't.
No, I still think Phillies are the team that's going to
Yeah,
ultimately win the division
me too.
for sure. Yeah, I don't see, and Atlanta's obviously not going to make
And
any
Atlanta's
noise.
not catching
I'd
them.
say
So
minus 140. I mean, I know they're tied right now, depending on the Mets result tonight. I mean, that it seems kind of low, but I guess you got to bake that in. But I mean, I think there's value at the Phillies minus 140 because I think they're better than a 60% chance to win the division. That's the state.
yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, Cubs have a 3-game lead over Milwaukee.
Now I
4.5
do
games
have a
over you.
sleeper in that division. Um,
Is it your annual Cincinnati Reds that
it
you?
is my annual Cincinnati
Yeah,
Reds, and
yeah.
it's because they just called up that prospect Chase Burns. You look at what their rotation's going to be, right? And they're at plus 1,200 as of this morning to win the division. They're going to have Hunter Green's coming back. You're going to have Andrew Abbott. You're going to have this Chase Burns, who's one of might be the top pitching prospect in baseball right now, and you still have Lodolo and Singer, and I might even be missing somebody. That's a solid rotation. 12-1. I mean, take a flyer. Listen, I mean, if you ask me right now, I would say, yeah, the Cubs are going to win the division. But if you ask me for value, that's a value bet to me, the Reds.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, 12-1. Anytime you can,
12-1 with that rotation?
yeah, you're getting 12-1. It's hard to argue against. Dodgers. That's nothing there. AL Yankees only half game above Tampa, 3 over Toronto.
So the Yankees are minus 220. The Rays are plus 425. I really wanted to bet the Rays, but Yankees are solid. Their rotation's very good. Their lineup's good. I just don't see it. I think the Rays are going to hang around, but I think Vegas has that right.
And what were the Yankees? You said
Minus 220.
Oh, 220. Yeah,
Minus 220.
yeah. That's
And
a lot.
the Rays are plus 425.
I would actually, if I'm betting a team there, I'm betting Toronto.
Toronto's plus 600. I mean, they have a decent rotation. They got some hitters. I just think the Yankees are just better than those teams.
Yeah, Toronto has a minus run differential, which doesn't usually bode well. Detroit, geez, 9.5. That's crazy, right? I mean, they're the best team in
Yeah,
baseball.
they're running away with it.
And then Houston is now up 6.5 in that division.
Well, you saw their pitching.
Yeah.
Obviously, is rock solid. Their lineup has a little to be desired, but with a pitching staff like that, I mean, you know, Mariners are a good team, but I just think Houston's better.
Yeah, and then if you move over to wild cards right now, I mean, a ton of baseball left. You got in the AL, Tampa, Toronto, and Seattle round up the wild card. I mean, nobody's like out of it totally, but Cleveland, Angels, Texas, Boston, Minnesota, KC, all right there. Any value on? I don't know if you have odds like to make the playoff, but just in general, thoughts around the AL wild card. Who can get in that isn't in right now, and out of Tampa, Seattle, and Toronto, who could fall out?
Um, yeah, uh, I think Toronto could, but like you said, like there's so many teams that are bunched up there, and I don't think any of them are good. I think the teams that are in, I think the Rays and the Mariners are solidly. They're going to make the playoffs. They're really good teams. I think the Blue Jays are probably going to be the last wild card team because I don't really know who's going to jump up. Like maybe the Royals might have value. I don't know.
Yeah,
Cleveland,
Texas. Are they?
Texas, maybe, but I mean, it's hard to say. They're all just mediocre teams.
Yeah, Chalky. Any thoughts around that?
Royals have been one of the more disappointing teams for me. I picked them to win the division. So they're 3.5 back of the last spot now. I mean, yeah. See, I mean, Tampa's played well, but they were like everybody's last place pick, I think, to start the division. I, you know, I'm not sold on them. Toronto, as I said, you could bet them, but they could fall out. Mariners of those three, I'd say would be most likely to hang around. But Royals, Royals. I guess Boston could get together, but they seem to be in disarray. I would say the Royals of that group, which is they don't have the Royals live right now because I think they're playing. So I can't give you a line on that to make the playoffs at the moment.
Okay, and then for the NL, so I mean Phillies, Mets, whatever you want to call it, Milwaukee and San Diego are the teams that are locked in, and not far behind. San Fran, St. Louis, Cincy, Arizona, not terribly behind, but dealing with injuries, and then Atlanta 6.5. So, uh, any surprises there? Who can go back in? Who can kind of fall? Obviously, Cincinnati for you, Jason, would be a potential wild card team, I would assume.
Yeah, my wild cards are the Mets, Giants, and Reds. But
So,
the Padres are good, and the
so you
Brewers.
so none of the team, well, Mets, but so basically Milwaukee and San Diego both dropping out in
Yeah,
your eyes.
I have the Giants in, and I have the Reds as my long shot.
Chalky.
Those three would be likely my teams at this point. I mean, I was on the Reds as a playoff team at the beginning of the year, and especially with the rotation, they can get hot, and they're not that far back. So, I mean, Brewers just find a way every year to lose players and still win. I mean, now I got Wizarowski and some of these other young kids coming up. I just don't know that they hang around. Padres would be the team, obviously, to worry about, I think, there. But I'd say Lewis will come back. Like I said, Diamondbacks are in trouble. Carroll could be out for God knows how long. They're not going to hang around. So I would say Mets, Giants, Reds, as Jason said.
All right. Does any of you guys have who we picked in our draft for our dinners? I don't know if anybody grabbed it before the show.
I mean, I know mine. I have the Phillies. I have the Orioles. I have the Red Sox, and I have the Padres. So
Okay, so two chances still as a possibility.
pretty much.
I honestly don't know. I know I have the Yankees.
I think you have the. I listened to it the other day. I didn't write them down. I think you have the best chance to get 3 or 4 teams.
So I know I had Arizona, so that one's not
They're
great.
in
And I had
they're in the air.
Minnesota, and I had Minnesota. I think.
Did you have Miss?
I think.
I should have.
I know I had the Yankees. That's honest to God. That's
Yeah.
the
You
only
had,
team
you
I
had the
can remember.
Yankees. I'm just looking here real quick. I know I had the Dodgers with the first pick.
Yeah.
And the Reds with my last pick. I don't think my other two teams are in the hunt. I took the Royals. The Royals are like outside, but
So then Meeker had the
Probably.
Braves probably, and then
Oh,
Mets, probably the
Meeker
Mets.
had the Braves win the World Series.
yeah,
Not great for him.
no, that's probably why he defected,
Yeah,
or one of the reasons.
somebody's got the
Yeah,
Cubs. I forget who now. Might be Meeker.
It's not me.
yeah, I can't. I didn't pick. I didn't grab them
Yeah.
either, so I'm not sure. So we'll get it. All right, before we wrap up here, some mid-season awards and bets that you might be looking at. Jason, I know you off air. You mentioned something that some kind of model you had, and you and Chalky were putting together. So you want to get into that?
Yeah, sure. We could start with Cy Young. So there's a guy on Twitter. His name's Tango Tiger. He's an MLB data architect, and he's actually the inventor of FIP, which is fielding independent pitching, which is one of the metrics that big metrics that's used now. He came up with a formula for Cy Young Award winners. So in the last 19 years, obviously, there's been 38 Cy Young Award winners. The top point getter in this formula that he has won 32 out of 38 times. The second place point getter has won 5 of those other 6 times. So only really one out of these last 38 Cy Young Award winners he was kind of way off with, and that was, I think, Corbin Burns in 2021. And it's basically,
Who should not have,
I'm sorry.
who should not have won.
Yeah, probably not.
That was the year Wheeler came back in, and
Right. So there you go. So the formula is innings pitched divided by 2 minus earned runs plus strikeouts divided by 10 plus wins. So we could start with the National League. And I believe Chalky's going to bring this up on the screen. So as of right now, your favorite to win the National League Cy Young is Paul Skeens. And he's minus 250 on DraftKings, minus 230 on FanDuel.
200 now.
And I'm sorry.
I got the live FanDuels if you want him. So
Oh
he's
yeah,
minus,
sure. I put this together this morning. So
yeah. So, but I mean, the graphic will say from this morning, but FanDuel still has theirs up for even though the games are going. So Skeens is 200 minus 200 right
minus
now
200 now.
on
Okay.
FanDuel.
So no real value there because he is the leading point getter. He's got 45 points. Second is Logan Webb with 42.7 points. And he's plus 850 on FanDuel. That might have changed.
That's still the same.
Okay. I think that's value there because he's not that far behind. Third is Wheeler. So, everybody's like, oh, Wheeler deserves it this year, this or that. He's 41.1 points. So he's kind of, he's a good bit behind. He's only plus 450 on DraftKings and FanDuel. So not really value on Wheeler. Fourth is Kodai Senga, who's hurt. So he's going to drop out. He's 38.8. And fifth is Andrew Abbott, who's 36.9. He's 50 to 1. I just think he's too far behind at this point. So there's no real value there. The value you're going to see, and there's big time value, is in the American League, right? So the top point getter there is 51.4 points for Max Fried. He is 11 to 1 on FanDuel and 10 to 1 on DraftKings.
10 to 1 now on FanDuel.
10 to 1 on FanDuel. Okay. There's tons of value on him. He's like the third or fourth choice, I think.
Fourth choice right now.
Second is Crochet. He's 50.3 points. Third is, and he's plus 350 on both, so there's no real value there. Third is the kid Hunter Brown today, who dominated the Phillies, 49.8 points. Now, these odds probably definitely changed. They were 7 to 1 this morning on FanDuel. Was probably, what is it now, Chalky? 5?
He is 480.
Yeah, so he's about 5 to 1 now. Fourth is your heavy favorite, Tyrese Skubal, with 46.5 points. So he's way, way behind Fried and Crochet, and even Brown for that matter. And he's odds on. He was minus 150 on both this morning. Did that change now?
He's 125 on FanDuel at the moment.
Minus. So he's still odds on. So I have preseason bet on Fried. I did add a Crochet bet because he's right there with Fried. I did parlay that with Carlos Alcaraz in Wimbledon. So Because 350, that's not going to do anything for me. So, and then fifth was Degrom with 43.1 points. He's not going to get there, but I think this shows where the value is. I thought it's really interesting.
Yeah, very. Yeah. I mean, if you can't argue what the data that has proved to, shown
37 out of 38, basically.
right. Yeah, I mean, and again, all these awards, you never know where they're going to vote. You don't know if somebody's going to get hurt. You put the bet in today and they get hurt, but
Right,
I mean, value is value, and right now, a guy like a Freed or whatever is value. So,
right.
regardless of the outcome, there's value there. So, good,
Yeah.
good bit. Did you have anything else? Thoughts on awards as we continue and wrap up?
I do. So I looked at MVP, and right, you have the two heavy MVP favorites. You have Otani in the National League. You have Judge in the American League. I took some flyers. So I looked at the WAR for the National League. Otani's 4.1. Believe it or not, a guy that I thought has real value is Skeens is 3.4. And I bet him, I think I bet him at 200 to 1 last week. I think he's 100 to 1 now. Probably not going to win, but I like
Yeah,
betting.
when's the last time a pitcher won an MVP award?
That might be a chalky question.
I believe Verlander won MVP a few years ago.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I think you're right.
He was still in Detroit,
Detroit,
but
yeah.
I think it's last one.
It's kind of like the old MVP, football MVP, where the quarterback kind of, it's just hard. They always segregate these awards.
I mean, it's tough because DeGrom. I mean, DeGrom had one of the greatest seasons ever. He won Cy Young, right? Here, I mean, his year a couple years ago was similar to what Skeens is seeing now, where he's got no run support and he wasn't close to MVP. So,
Yeah.
that's going to be tough without Pittsburgh being a good team. But
And then another guy was James Wood. It was 3.3 WAR. I bet him yesterday 100 to 1 on ESPN. He's now 85 to 1.
Yeah, he's been ripping the ball apart.
That kid's talented. He
55
reminds
to
me
1
like
on FanDuel.
85 to 1. Yeah. So, but I got him 100 to 1 yesterday on ESPN. And I took a shot on Ketel Marte, 85 to 1. He's most likely not going to win, but his stats, like, he's been hurt. His stats are right there if, the projection keeps going for what he's been doing. And then the last one, American League, it's probably going to be Judge, although Cal Raleigh, I mean, that guy's got 32 home runs as a catcher. That's pretty solid. But I think Judge has to get hurt not to win. Last thing I have is Rookie of the Year. I took a shot on Agustin Ramirez for the Marlins at 16 to 1. I thought, that's wide open. Like Mizorowski, believe it or not, what did he pitch? 3 times? He's already the favorite to win. And that guy could be wild, right? He could, so he could go off track at any point. I do want to point out, I'll toot my own horn, the kid Wilson for Rookie of the Year in the American League, I gave him out on our podcast, on our preview. He's like minus 1,600 now. So, like, or something ridiculous, 2,000. He's got to get hurt not to win. So, and I think I bet him at 1,600 or something like that. So, that's what I got.
All right, Chalky, anything else to add on the awards side?
I mean, I agree with Jason that the most wide open, really, of the races would be the NL Rookie of the Year. And Mizorowski also had, I think he missed significant time in the minors with an injury, so that could flare up. I don't have a pick there. Ramirez is now 21 to 1 on FanDuel, so there's guys. Chase Burns just came up; he's 10 to 1 already, he's third choice. So who knows?
Yeah, it's wide open.
So, I mean, the guys that we all were taking at the beginning of the year, Shaw, Cruz, some of that, like, they're all 35, 40 injuries got sent down. So it's wide open. There's no prohibitive favorite there. And like I said, after 3 starts, you want to put Mizorowski odds on. I would say if you like somebody else, make a bet there. And the other thing, given his history, if Judge does miss some time, Rowley's going to have a hard time keeping up that pace. But if he hits 55, 60 home runs, he's 4-5 to 1 now. I mean, a little something there. If Judge should get hurt, he's put up unprecedented numbers for a catcher at this point. So,
who did the Sixers draft as a live update?
I will give you that in a second. Broom from Auburn,
Okay, so that was a Sixers pick. All right, so he's a power forward.
Johnny Broom.
I've seen
Yeah.
Um,
him. He was
I
good.
actually I had him in my NCAA player pool this year. Yeah, him and Clayton helped me win. Good. I guess I don't know.
All right. So we will be wrapping up episode 162 of Broad Street Hustle. Did we configure out next week?
I think we're going to take a sabbatical next week,
So
and then I believe the week after should be. Is it Saratoga opening
I
weekend or
believe that next week will be British Open.
British Open?
It will be. I mean, Saratoga does open the 10th, so it would have just opened, but I think that'll be British Open coverage.
yeah, because we'll have to do Tuesday or Wednesday, so it'll be prior. Okay, so maybe next week we'll do a best of. So stay tuned. Keep subscribing. Maybe you'll
Put the
do a best
producer to work.
of. A best of will pop up, replay something. But
Yeah, I'll
episode 162, broad shout outs. Have a great night.